Welcome to episode 9 of The Political Space with me, Webster. So this is a platform that discusses politics in depth without taking sides, without being biased, without malice, strictly politics. And this week on episode 9 of The Political Space, we are hosting a governance expert, a public speaker, and he calls himself the incoming Lusaka Central MP by the name of Bwanga, Chriseddy, Mwila. Thank you so much, sir, and welcome to Political
Thank
Space.
you so much for having me, Mr. Zula. I assumed you'd been in Chwala.
Of course.
Am I allowed to do Chimbuya with you while on this podcast?
Come on, we can do that. I'm actually inviting you from Chwala to, as we are recording today,
Indeed.
the time we're recording this, the Paramount, His Majesty, let me not use the Paramount chief. His Majesty will be moving from Epeduken Palace now to go to Lawini and for
in a Maybach. You guys,
of course, very sweet place. You should have been there. And Saturday, please find yourself.
We are okay with our crocodile.
What do you call your tradition ceremony again? Sitting on a dead crocodile. How do you celebrate on a dead crocodile?
No, if I go hard on you, this podcast will end. So let's get to our conversation.
All right. So I'm inviting you here on Political Space to simply understand your political journey, and I've seen that you're aspiring for Lusaka Central.
Yeah.
But before we get into the nitty-gritties of today's conversation, who is Mwila?
So Mwila is I'm a Zambian, first and foremost.
Of course, we know that.
It's important in politics to establish
you're a Zambian.
That you're a Zambian, because before you know it, as time progresses, there will be some information that might come out and
came
say,
from somewhere,
this man came from exactly. You know. So I, born and bred, I grew up in Chingola, born in a family of 6. I'm the last born. I went to Chingola Secondary School. That's where I did a larger portion of my secondary education. While I was at Chingola Secondary School, I also served as the head prefect, or the head boy, as many people love to call it, while I was at Chingola Secondary School. And I think the largest portion of my whole entire life has always evolved around leadership. You know, either when I was in high school, either when I was in sport, because when I was a young fellow, when I still had a little bit of energy by then, I used to play cricket. So I played cricket at club level, national level, provincial level. I represented Zambia at under 17, under 19. And even in all those phases, you know, I was always regarded as the captain, you know, or the one who is leading the team in this particular limelight. So I was, you know, born and bred in Chingola. You know, even when I discovered my calling that is in this field of leadership, I think everything was in Chingola. So I came to Lusaka probably at about 2012, thereabout, when I came to pursue my studies in politics and international relations at the University of Lusaka. While I was there, I decided to run for union presidency, and I was elected as the student union president of the University of Lusaka. While I was at the University of Lusaka, I wrote 2 books which basically focused on critiquing Africa's politics and Africa's governance system. The purpose of those books were around how can we reimagine the future of doing politics on the African continent, you know. So there are so many things, you know, around my whole entire journey in life, which I believe we'll be able to touch on as we progress in our conversation.
So like now, from experience, you had a lot of leadership opportunities as you grew up. So now it has gotten to the point where you have to stand for Lusaka Central.
Indeed. And it's not really the first time, actually. So 2011, I aspired to contest in Inchanga in my hometown, Chingola, where I ran.
Where you ran?
I ran in Chingola for Inchanga constituency, and I came out 3rd in a race of 5 candidates. I performed fairly well. But as years progressed after 2021, I came to realize that I have spent a larger portion of my life in this other part of the country. And when the opportunity for me now to say, do I go back and run for my hometown, or do I run in an environment where I have been in tune with the challenge that they're confronting? I have been able to provide solutions to some of these problems that the people in this particular constituency are facing. And the greatest level of hypocrisy from any politician is to claim to represent people that you are not in close proximity with.
So others would say maybe you ran away from Mike 2.
Not necessarily, because Mike 2 is a colleague, you know. So it's one thing to aspire, but it's another thing to be realistic. I spent a larger portion of my life, like I stated, in this greater part of Zambia, which is Lusaka. Many people know about an organization that I founded, which I recently detached myself from because of politics, which is Be Relevant Africa.
Okay.
Be Relevant Africa has gone to train over 5,000 young people in Lusaka. We've gone to provide platforms to close to 3,000 young people, and we've done a lot of, educational programs in Bauleni, in Luwa, and so on and so forth. And some of these things, actually, I used to do them even without a day where I would think I would aspire for Lusaka Central. So basically what I really wanted to do was to represent a community that I am in close proximity with. Because what you also don't want is to go back to an area, then they say, elections.
So you don't want that?
You want to try by all means to, what's the best word of life to use? In politics, we're all about damage control. You need to manage perception.
Okay.
So as you are managing perception, you also need to be a little bit strategic about it.
So just clarify, look in your camera to say, I didn't run away from Mark 2. It was
I did not run away from Mark 2. Mark 2 is a brother. I'm actually supporting Mark 2 for him to win in Changa constituency. But I am running for Lusaka Central because I want to represent people who I am in close proximity with, and Chingola forever remains home.
I was actually going through your manifesto.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of vision for Lusaka Central, depoliticizing CDA, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But in an election year, vision is cheap.
True.
So today we want to talk about how. Looking at what are some of the historical challenges that Lusaka, sorry, my heart is with Chipata already. Lusaka Central is facing, historical challenges that Lusaka Central is really facing that you think you are able to tackle them?
So when you look at Lusaka Central, it's a very sensitive constituency. It's not like other constituencies within Lusaka. So it's a constituency that borders, the higher class as well as the high dense places such as Bauleni. So being able to bridge the gap with some of these key demographics is very important, because you might think as a member of parliament, I am doing everything that I can for the people of Bauleni, but actually maybe the people of Rhodes Park or the people of Woodlands are actually missing out in that particular equation, or the people of Long Acres or the people of Town Center are actually missing out in that particular equation. So when we were developing this vision for Lusaka Central, we wanted to be as holistic as we can be, because what Lusaka Central has been missing is a branding name to it. When people think Matero, there's something that pops up in their mind. When people think Mandevo, there's something that pops up in their mind. When people think Lusaka Central, they just think it's a constituency of the upper class or something like that. And one thing that we personally, running for office for Lusaka Central, one of the things that I really want to do is to make Lusaka Central become the hub of innovation. Meaning anything that has to speak about a forward-looking city of Lusaka, people think Lusaka Central. When we're thinking about innovation in tech, Lusaka Central. Innovation in sport, Lusaka Central. When you go to a community like Bauleni, there is an array of talent in that particular community, which basically ends in Bauleni. So we're going to have young people that are passionate about music, young people that are passionate about art, young people that are passionate about sport. And that's why you see that every aspiring politician in Lusaka Central is going to host a football tournament in Bauleni. Why? Because they are passionate about that. So one of the historical elements to Lusaka Central is that it has lacked an identity of its own. And that's something that I believe we can bring to this beauty, city, to this beautiful constituency of Lusaka Central.
So why are you looking at these problems that Lusaka Central facing? Is it from an office, from the community? Where exactly? When was the last time that you actually slept in or walked in Bauleni late and actually see what happens?
So when you read our manifesto, we have labeled it Ya Bantu. And from the beginning of our manifesto, the very first page, we had established that we had consistent meetings with the community, which we call public insakers, which we keep on having even up until now. So everything we have actually reflected in our manifesto for Lusaka Central is not a vision born out of Mwila's ambition, but it's a vision that has been born out of people's aspirations. We keep calling our manifesto a people-driven agenda, because for the longest period of time, what we've always done as politicians, that we've gone into a community with a messianic kind of title, where we think we are small Jesus, and we are the ones with all the solutions. that the community wants to actually have. So you go into Silwizia Ward, which is in Lusaka Central, and you tell them what your comrades in here need is clean drainages. But basically, maybe what they need is is access to economic empowerment for their young people to no longer be drug addicts or so on and so forth. You go into community and you tell them what we need to do here, comrades, is that we need to establish a school. Maybe that school is very important, but there's over 5 key schools within that community which are lacking desks, which are lacking proper water and sanitation and so on and so forth. So what we're able to do is to go into a community and engage with them. What are the key challenges that you are facing? And they were able to explain to us in, that's why we're able to put together the manifesto that we put together.
Now, a youth in Lusaka Central, what are their main desperations? Number 1,
you go into Silvizia Ward, they'll tell you. And I think it's even on my Facebook page, if you look it up. One young person in Silvizia Ward just explicitly told us, Mwila, munofwema junkie twafudisha. And the reason why many of us are becoming junkies because we have nothing to do. That's number 1. Number 2, you have to understand, Webster, that Lusaka Central is one of the key constituencies within Lusaka, which houses a lot of students. Now, these students have been relegated to cadres, rubber stampers, and vuvuzelas, that their only agenda is to praise and sing for the politicians.
Because that's why they're getting something.
That's why they're getting something, quite right. But you also have to understand, so there's life after politics. And that's why many of the young people get to miss it. I've been a student union leader before, so I know exactly what I'm talking about. So some of the young people, they lack access to life-changing skills. We are discussing about the future of work. Zambia and many African countries, we major in the minors. While some of our colleagues in the developed world are engaging on artificial intelligence and they are speaking about key conversations on the future of work, we are still stuck on petty and minor conversations. So one of the key elements that our young people in Lusaka Central are also facing is access to profound opportunities and networks that can help them regarding the future of work. The other young people in Lusaka Central, what they're also facing is we don't have an environment that capacitates the talent of young people that we have in Lusaka Central. So when they are footballers, it ends in a Bauleni pitch. When they can play pool so well, it ends in the club. When they can sing so well, it ends on them forwarding their music on WhatsApp. But we need to be able to create an enabling environment through which some of the young people in Lusaka Central can begin to see themselves to say, you know what, I can actually become, not only for the sake of praising songs to a politician, but we need to get to a point where I create an environment so enabling for young people in Lusaka Central that for a politician to come in Lusaka Central and lie to them that I'll give you 50 kwacha, go here, therefore, and do this, it becomes very difficult.
So to an unemployed youth that is in Lusaka Central right now, who doesn't care about your political ambitions, how are you going to convince them to say you understand these concerns that you've actually
But I think that's the biggest perception that we've had as Zambians, where we have placed Zambian citizens in a bubble of thinking because they are uneducated, they are not exposed, they can't think. That's the biggest misconception that we have of Zambians. Zambians are one of the most highly analytical we can ever think of. If money could move a voter to vote otherwise, the MMD would have beat the PF in 2011. If money could move the voter to vote otherwise, the PF could have won in 2021. But we need to get to a point and understand that money doesn't always move the Zambian, because a Zambian by himself, they are very analytical. Zambians know who is lying to them and who is actually being honest with them. And hence you could hear statements such as watermelon. You could hear statements such as what moves a Zambian is being able to speak to their heart and basically to just show them, to say, I care about your needs. I am not here because I'm a politician. I am here because I am your brother, I am a colleague, and I believe I can do something about your situation if you give me an opportunity to do that. And that's what we've been doing in our campaign in Lusaka Central. We've been going into the community. Just recently, when I was coming to you earlier today in the morning, I went and I do this almost every Wednesday and Thursday. I go into one street either in Baoleni or in Lubawat, and we just take a walk and we keep on greeting people. We greet people here, and we keep on having conversations with them. And you're going to find a situation where in most of the communities I have been in, they'll shout my name, Honorable, Honorable, and they'll not even ask for a 50 kwacha. Why? I have become one with them. So they see me as a comrade. They no longer see me as that guy. Boss. Even when you're removing money to support them in one way or another. But it's not out of a needed desire to milk you, because you've created a political environment where they no longer see you as an ATM, but they now see you as a colleague that they can take into a particular position in order to make their reality
so better. Where do you see, at what point do people think to say, this politician, we need to milk from him, this not? Like, where do you see?
Whenever you come to someone, it's like, let me give you this example, right? Sorry, Mr. Webster.
No, it's okay.
Let me say it in Bemba.
Say it in Bemba.
Mrefu akamkashana baba Webster. Mama nati. Webster mrefu akamkashana. Then akakamkashana mrefu. First date wakatwara pa Intercontinental.
Very sweet.
Second date, Holiday Inn. Then the moment now things now settle down. Then now you show that comrade, actually things were not okay. Then now fiambo kurubana mkalamba wanji. No, can we go for date? Angry lion. Sir, can we go for date? Kumatebeto. Now baby girl red now begins to wonder. Impression. What sells in politics, Mr. Webster, is perception. People vote on the basis of perception. So when you give the right kind of perception, people easily adjust to you. 80% of the people, when you go in Lusaka Central, they call me Umuntu. Uni guy. Uni guy. That's already the perception.
If I saw you, I was going to ask money from you, and I want you to. I'm asking for money from you right now because you look to be someone. What type of being?
No, it's important.
Let's look. I want to take you back from 2021.
Yeah, please.
The time PF got out of power.
Yeah.
What things that were indicators to say the party is going out, and this is 2026, it's an election year. Yeah. Are you seeing a similar thing?
I wouldn't speak boldly about, the PF because, I think, they have their own major key voices that can speak in a nutshell.
I mean the indicators that you saw to say the party might go out of power.
Yeah, I think number one, which we all talk about, is arrogance, right? Which we could see from cadres, and Zambians naturally detest arrogance. Whether this arrogance is coming from the PF, whether this arrogance is coming from the UPND, Zambians in a nutshell don't like arrogance. So I think we were able to see someone would speak about the ills that were probably happening within the Patriotic Front government. And we could see people from the PF justifying. You are in your head. You are imagining things. So automatically people were saying, oh, okay, Tuala Miranga. When Zambians complain about maybe a particular issue that might not be going well within the UPND government, and colleagues maybe who are loyal to the UPND party begin to justify some of the issues that the Zambians are complaining about.
Is it a similar situation right now?
That's why, again, I'll come back to the same situation that it will be very difficult. I can't speak on behalf of the political parties. No, you are speaking
from a youth advocate.
Let me speak on behalf of a governance expert, right? Yes. Exactly. So it would be important that whenever even the Zambian citizens, they complain about a particular predicament, you don't need to provide an essay to explain why something might not be going well. It's important to just say, you know what? We understand we have erred in this particular manner and we'll do something about it. Because we have to understand, Webster, that in an electoral and democratic dispensation, the voter is the employer. The politician is the employee. So the one who owes the other an explanation is never the employer. It's the employee who owes the employer an explanation. So when something is not going right, if I am working for an organization and something is not going right in that particular organization, I owe my employer an explanation. No, colleagues, the reason why we are lacking in submitting this report is because of A, B, C, D. But you find a situation where the employee is the one who's asking now, sir, then the employer, and then the employee now is the one telling the employer, I will do this whenever I feel like it.
It's because the employee seem to have more powers than the employer.
And that's why we now need to change that particular environment. You understand, right? And that's why I also keep saying, the vote, let us go back. So we have UNIP government. One of the most powerful governments we've ever had in this country.
Yeah.
No doubt about that, right? The reason why UNIP government started losing its grip on the people, slowly but sure, was just basically out of that. Arrogance. President Kenneth Kaunda is my favorite politician up until this date. But one thing that President Kenneth Kaunda went on to say, when people were pushing for multi-party politics, he went on to say, let me sign this constitution and reintroduce multi-party politics so that you can see that your small political parties mean nothing. So President Kaunda was very confident in all his might that he can beat whichever political party was there at that moment in time. The MMD comes into power, right? Fast forward 2011, same thing. PF, probably they don't have enough money. They don't have enough infrastructure. You know, they don't have what it takes to unseat the might of the Rupia Banda government, as it were, at that moment in time. I mean, President Rupia Banda had so much regalia that even animals could wear.
We had bicycles.
We had bicycles being dressed, trees were being dressed, helicopters were distributing flyers. So the Rupia Banda election was well-funded, comrade. But we also what happened. 2021, same scenario. These guys are Facebook politicians.
Where are we now?
These guys are nothing politicians. Now we are in 2026.
What's this political situation like?
And the political situation, from my own take, there's a lot of political shenanigans going on in our political environment right now, right? The UPND have a lot of work to do as well. We can't take that away, you know. The UPND have a lot of work to do to give back hope to the Zambians that we have what it takes to steer the ship, that we have what it takes. Now, there's a comparison that will be done. Okay, so now you were not in power then, now you've been in power now. So let us now mark you based on what you actually promised the Zambian people. So it will now be an even environment. Whichever opposition will emerge victorious, whether, you know, because right now, we have, Brian Mundubile Tonse, we have Harry Kalava, we have the PF, which is trying to put its house in order, and so on and so forth. So 2026 looks to be an election that will be quite interesting, and we look forward to see how things will go.
Your candidacy.
Yeah.
Let me ask, which party are you going for? Which ticket are you standing on?
It will be established very soon, but at the moment, I'm still championing within my own solo space. Okay. But it will be known very soon.
Why are you in your solo space right now?
No,
Is there some political strategies that you are seeing I need to say right now?
You need to. One thing about politics, Mr. Webster, is the biggest problem that young people we get to make is we get to build brands that become so attached to a political party that we can't stand by ourselves. And for me, I've been able to say, let me work hard, that I build a brand as Mwila.
That you can stand as independent.
That even if I stand on Webster Zulu political party, it's not the party that necessarily that is giving me more momentum, but because I've also done my own work.
But isn't this the same problem that we face as Zambia, to say political parties, they are more individualized? Once Mwila is out of this political party, it can't stand on its own. Isn't the same branding concept that you're talking about?
Not necessarily. I think when we talk about political parties standing on the aspect of individualization, it's probably because of the figurehead. What most political parties lack in Zambia is a system. If you compare a political party like the ANC has an established system and framework. So the party is stronger than the individuals within the party. But in Zambian politics, the individuals are stronger than the party. So when I join a political party, I'm joining as an individual. I am not the head of that political party. So I can bring my own creativity, my own ideas. It's up to the leadership of the party to either take it or leave it. So I think, to answer your question, very soon I'll come back on the political space
and say
we are moving in this particular direction.
Be Relevant Africa. Yes. What tangible outcomes have come out of there that you can point out as an impact in the community?
So Be Relevant Africa was founded in 2018. So 2018, we found Be Relevant Africa. In 2020, we hosted our very first Be Relevant Youth Summit, which gathered roughly about 300 young people at Mulungushi. And fast forward up until 2025, we've been consistent with that particular summit. Why did we do that summit? we came to a full realization that young people in Zambia have been lacking tangible platforms through which they can network, build their leadership, and contribute to the national conversation. So Be Relevant Youth Summit has always been about contributing to the national conversation, giving young people a space through which they can no longer see themselves as participants in a conference, but they can see themselves as contributors to the conversation in that particular conference. We formed the Be Relevant Leadership Academy. Should be around 2021, thereabout. So we formed the Be Relevant Leadership Academy, and the Be Relevant Leadership Academy has gone on to train, like I said, over 5,000 roughly young people in an array of leadership, styles. Some of the credible leaders we have today who I can point to when we talk about your famous Dixon Young Mutambo, governor, is a product of Be Relevant. When you talk about Commander Kwishiba, the young Jemima Mwava, is a product of Be Relevant Africa. And the list goes on. We've provided platforms to so many brilliant young people who have also now become advocates of this actual brand. So I can safely say that so far as things stand, speaking as a former executive director, Be Relevant Africa for me is one of the fastest growing youth-led organizations, not only in Zambia, but even in Southern Africa, because much of the work that we are doing has not only been recognized in Zambia, but is also now bearing its footprint across the region of Southern Africa.
So far you have 5 books, right?
Yes.
4, 5?
5 books.
So those books that you've written, others on governance, so on and so forth, what piece of policy or registration that you can see to say from this book, at least certain policies were born, or certain registrations that you actually took from book were actually actualized later on?
So when I wrote a book titled I Am Africa, right? And the whole purpose of that book was to rethink African governance, African identity, and African leadership. That book did so well that key universities across Southern Africa adopted it for academic use. So that in itself was a plus for me, meaning I contributed to the body of knowledge in the African school of thought. Okay. So that in itself is something that I can basically boast to say my book today is being used by master students and undergraduate students across certain universities within Southern Africa. So for me, that's a bonus already. The recent book I did, Giants of Liberation, I came to understand that, Zambia's freedom fighters are not well profiled. And the whole purpose of the book was to profile some of Zambia's freedom fighters, So when we put together that book, the whole idea was around how do future generations get to learn more about this particular book. So this book has also done fairly well. There are key schools within Zambia that are utilizing this particular school. The book has gone as far as being adopted, in certain, African studies in the United States, So, for me, one of the key areas that my books have done have been to contribute to the academic school of thought, because I can't necessarily say that they've contributed to a change of policy. Maybe in the long run they will do that, but every dynamic change of policy first and foremost begins in the academic in the academic corridors. So the first thing that we did was to say, how do we penetrate the academic school of thought so that our ideas can be read and understood by Africa's future generations?
Can you name maybe some of the decisions that the current administration has done over maybe on Lusaka Central that you publicly disagree on? That you can say, this decision on Lusaka Central wasn't so good, this one was too good?
I think the biggest component that many people have been complaining, especially when it comes to Lusaka Central, is, and that's something that I've reflected in my manifesto, is to bring the office of the Member of Parliament in close proximity to the people. Bringing the office of MP closer to the people. An area that people have, highly complained about, where they feel like the area Member of Parliament is not fully engaged with the needs and concerns of the local people. They don't consistently see him. They don't consistently feel him. They don't consistently get to feel a presence of authority in one way or another. These are things that many colleagues have complained about, whether you go to Kabulonga Ward and so on and so forth. That in itself now begins to trickle down to all these other areas. There are certain key components which even on my social media platforms I have praised on, you know, where there is a deliberate mechanism on trying to support the water, you know, the providing water in Bauleni. There is a project that is currently going on, which is being funded by the Africa Development Bank, something I've already publicly supported, because it's important that as politicians, we don't only speak of the bad, but we also try to see how we can praise that which is working. You understand, right? So that component in itself. The other component is what I talked about, being able to bridge the gap between the high dense areas and the low dense areas, and being able to bring development to all these people equally. You know, so I think for me, these are some of the major components that we can all, you know, basically begin to look into. Like I said, Lusaka Central is a very unique constituency. You know, so you need to have a very diverse strategy on ensuring that you speak to the needs and concerns of the people.
Depoliticizing CDF. Lusaka Central, in terms of managing the CDF.
Yeah.
Where are we?
Yeah, so like I said, you know, when I was in Bauleni, some of the key messages that I got from there is they feel CDF only revolves around people that are close to the powers that be.
Okay.
They feel it doesn't trickle down to the actual grassroots voter, you know, to the actual citizen of Lusaka Central. And that's why for me, I talk about the depoliticization of CDF, the need for us to rethink the manner in which CDF is being rolled out. CDF is a game changer. That's something I've even said in my manifesto. I have never said CDF is problematic. We need to restructure it. We need to depoliticize it. Where CDF does not first and foremost benefit political party structures, but it even benefits that average.
How?
So the easiest way is through transparency and accountability.
Because I believe the time you choose which party you'll be on, you win. If you win, there will be some, you have to, in one or the other, really your people that supported you benefit from that. So how really exactly, when you say depoliticize?
So it's important to also understand, Mr. Webster, that the people that vote for you and the people that don't vote for you are still your people when you become their leader. So whether I get, hypothetically, let us say I get 30,000 votes in Lusaka Central and I emerge as victorious, and the second candidate gets 28,000 votes, meaning those 28,000 people did not vote for me. Does that mean they don't have to benefit from the actual political cake? No, definitely not. So you begin to create systems of accountability and transparency, meaning when there is funds being distributed, let's say for a fishery project or for a piggery project, let that circulation of information not only revolve around the people that are already in close proximity to me, but even those that are not in close proximity to me should be able to benefit from that particular arrangement. And that's why in my manifesto, I kept on emphasizing on the importance of constituency indabas on a quarterly basis, where I meet with the community.
No, yeah, I was so like a constituency indaba is part of the mechanism that you'd want to ensure transparency.
That's something I would also like to ensure that is embedded to ensure transparency. So that on a quarterly basis, I am meeting with the community per ward. Where are we on allocating of CDF? How are we working with the ward development committees? How are we working with the councillors? How are we working with Lusaka City Council? Because you also have to understand that my role as a member of parliament is basically to oversee.
Yeah.
I'm not in, my job is parliament and to make laws. So the easiest way I can do is to then create systems where I ensure, because whether I like it or not, the blame will never come to the councillor when CDF is being misappropriated. The blame will still come to the member of parliament. So how do I ensure that as a member of parliament, I create systems where there is transparency and accountability? And the easiest way to do that is to consistently engage with the local community of Lusaka Central through the constituency endeavors that we're going to be having on a quarterly basis, and to also ensure that the ward development committees are accountable to the local people and not the other way around.
But these ward development committees, there are people that have a specific part they support of, and then you are a member of parliament support a different party. How are you going to ensure to say your interest and their interest meet?
Leadership. That's what you do. It's leadership. So if I have interest, you also have interest. How do we ensure that our interests they bring together? But above and beyond, how do we ensure that the citizen of Lusaka Central benefits? Because just because you're the member of parliament does not necessarily mean that you need to always have it your way. So you talk to them, colleagues, how do you want us to work together? You want us together in this particular manner? The manner in which I want to drive this constituency is in this particular manner. So let us meet somewhere for the betterment of Lusaka Central. So above and beyond, everything ends and starts on leadership, which I believe I am bringing to Lusaka Central.
The people's in Lusaka, how is it going? And there are some ideas that you felt before you started this.
Yeah.
You had these aspirations, say this is what happens in politics, so on and so forth. And was there some ideas that you say these were wrong and these were right according to?
Yeah, I had. You know, when you decide to run for office, you always have these gigantic ideas on what you think you're going to do for the community, right? And then when I started engaging with the local people now, and then I'm just there, I'm like, Lord have mercy. Everything I thought I should do for Lusaka Central is basically out of touch, you know. So, for instance, you know, when I went to Siluizia Ward for the very first time, when I was having a community meeting with people in Siluizia Ward, and they told me of the challenge that they are facing. Already in a pre-manifesto we had done, we already had ideas for Siluizia Ward. We're going to be doing table tournaments. We're going to be doing, you know, the general political manifestos. But then when I got there, then I came to understand, so what they want, these people, is actually not entertainment kind of activities. They really want to see things that are going to get their lives to the next level. The people of Siluizia Ward and Lubo actually also explicitly told me, we are tired being so dependent on you guys. We want to create a community where we don't have to keep coming to you for fish, but you create an enabling environment where we all learn how to fish. And from there now, I had to completely dismantle what I thought about Lusaka Central. Because I then came to understand that as an aspiring member of parliament, it's really not about me. It's about the people that I want to represent.
That's what every politician says.
That's what every politician says, quite right. And that's why as a younger generation, I believe we are giving ourselves to this big agenda of running for office to show that we can actually do something different. Because right now, I can't be judged for a leadership position I have not yet assumed. And that's why even when I'm in the community, I'm telling them, they say, look, you have an opportunity to elect me as your member of parliament for Lusaka Central, so that you can see for yourself that I can actually bring a different kind of leadership. It's also important to judge leaders by the history that they've had, with even little small leadership positions that they've held. And I think for me, when I go back in history, with the small leadership positions I have held, I think I have definitely emerged as a leader worth looking at.
And just to follow up on this, there is this conversation, youth politics, and I believe 2026 we're going to see a lot of young people right, aspiring for this. What's driving this?
I think for the first time, young people have gotten to a point where they feel like they've been used, where they feel like their greatest responsibility have been to usher people into leadership while being dumped by the roadside. So I think, and that's why you're seeing so many young people not yet committing to a political party, because they don't really know how that will turn out. Because they'll say, I will give myself to a political party and I will push, only to be left on the adoption at the last minute. So young people are a little bit now more careful than before. And that's why you're seeing this rise of young people wanting to take up leadership, because they feel, look, I'm 32, I'm 33, my time has come. You can't be telling me I'm still young at the age of 33. You know, I'm giving an example of what the young people are saying out there. You know, so it's an awakening. The very same manner that our leaders in the early 1960s had an awakening, the Kenneth Kaundas and the Simon Mwanza Kapwepwes, I believe it's an awakening even in 2026 now, that there are so many young people who really want to say, you know what, I would rather put myself out there. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't work out, at least I put myself out there. An opportunity for me will come, you know. So I think it's high time that even the young people who are watching us right now, they started looking at themselves. They began to disrupt the status quo of cadres, vuvuzelas, noisemakers, and rubber stampers, titles we've always held as young people. And the other politicians, they know us well. They know small little positions tickle us. You know, you are the branch chairperson. Yeah. You are the PS. You are the publicity and your publicity secretary. You are the what? You are the publicity and information secretary, PIS. And you walk around Lusaka with your confidence. You know, and when someone talks to you, you are PIS. You know, like you even have that the position automatically just gives you a certain level of pomp, even when you're not benefiting anything. But I think young people now have gotten to a point where they've realized that it's not enough for me to flirt with my positions, which actually don't even give me the value that I need for me to contribute to my nation. And also I think it's the exposure. I think as young people, we are now exposed. We understand media, we understand tech, we understand artificial intelligence, we understand how the world is working. We travel and we see how some of our colleagues who are younger than us maybe are even doing in other countries. So when we come back to our country and we are being relegated to a waiting list, it automatically now just gives you a certain level of awakening to say, look, if I don't wake myself up, no one is going to wake me up. And I think that's why this whole youth movement is right.
So this youth movement, youths are segmented male and females.
Yeah.
Are you seeing the same strength? Let me use this word. Are you seeing the same push from the female side or the male side?
Yeah, most definitely. Okay. Most definitely. When I'm on social media, and then one thing that you also have to understand is that we have relegated leadership to politics.
Okay.
Whenever we think of the word leadership or occupying space, we think politics. But there are so many young people who are occupying space today, even in other areas. When we look at some of the young people who are holding high-level positions, even in the corporate world, some of them are very young people. Some of the young people that are running media companies, very young people. You know, so what I'm trying to say is that even from the context of women, young women, definitely I'm seeing that rise. There are so many young women today who are also saying, you know what, I am ready to take up space in politics. I am ready to take up space in advocacy. I am ready to take up space even in the field of business. So to answer that question, definitely they are there.
So in terms of politics, the same youth movement after August, you're a governance expert. What are you seeing? Are youths really going to take this position, or the push right now is not going to yield the results after August?
One thing that I always say is that power does not fear noise. Power is not scared of noise. Power fears organization. And what we lack as young people is to create an organized system. So after August 13th, 2026, we need to be able now to create such a strong young people-led agenda that speaks to the aspirations of our generation. Either we do it now or we do it after the elections, whatsoever it might be. We need to get to that point where we even break political barriers. Whether you are party red or party green or party blue, if you're a young person, let us find a way on how we come together to create an agenda so strong that speaks to the aspirations of our generation. My father always tells me, my father is 78, and he tells me, I don't have the authority to speak of what your generation needs, of where your generation needs to go, because I am not in tune with the desires of your generation. I can guide from the context of wisdom, but I may not understand what you guys need. And that's what we need to also begin to understand as young people, that we owe it to ourselves. During the Kenneth Kaunda time, they were able to usher the country in a particular dimension, because all of them, as they were leading, they were in the same generation. And the people that were also leading, a larger portion of them were in their generation. Yeah. Something applies today. Zambia's population, 70% or if not 80% is under the age of 19. We have the Gen Z, we have the Gen Alpha, we have the Gen Z, and we have the Millennials. We, the Millennials, you and me who are sitting here, we are in between of Gen X and the Gen Z. The Gen X are the older people. Then we have the Gen Z who are younger than us. So us, we understand the realities of the old and also understand the realities of our younger generation. Who then is best fit to lead in this time other than us? Because if we strategically position ourselves, colleagues, we are able to understand the aspirations of the people who are 70 and 80, because we understand their needs. But then again, I'm also understanding the needs of this Gen Z who are TikTok lovers.
Yeah.
You know, the reason why you and me are holding this conversation here on a podcast, you're not a 70-year-old.
No.
Because you understand what can easily translate into action in the 21st century. And that's why our generation needs to position itself.
Just one point. The old generation was looking at freedom fighting, then the others that were looking at democracy. Then us, what are we looking at? What should be our aspirations right now?
Economic emancipation. That should be our agenda as our generation. The biggest challenge that our generation is facing is a lack of economic independence. So we need to work extremely hard that Zambia is not tossed left, right, and center by aid. Today, Zimbabwe turned down 300+ million of health aid from the US. Why? Because it had certain components that did not speak well to the sovereignty of Zimbabwe. So we need to get to a point as a country as well, where economic emancipation becomes an ideal reality. But how do we do that? We need to create an environment where it's no longer a sin for people to succeed. The problem we have, I don't know if I don't want to speak for other African countries.
No.
The problem we have in our country, we have created a society where it's a sin to succeed. So when a young person starts a media company, automatically the environment seems to choke success and ambition. I've already been told that I'm too ambitious.
Okay.
You know, so we need to disrupt that kind of environment where it's very easy for a young person who decides to wake up today and become a photographer and still earn millions, because there's an environment and an economic system that is able to capacitate such kind of a person. So there are so many things we have to create policy-wise, you know. Number one, our universities need to get to a point where they can incubate ideas. Not only incubate ideas, but create a system where those ideas can easily be funded. We need to have our own Zambezi Valley, where ideas are generated. The same way our colleagues have a Silicon Valley, we can have our Zambezi Valley, where ideas are generated and financed. That's number one. Point number two, football is not the only sport we have in our country. We need to find a way on how we support the betterment of almost every other sport in this particular nation. The media industry, we need to find a way on how we begin to monetize social media, because so many of our young people are becoming content creators, but our social media platforms, a larger portion of them are not even well monetized. There is an agenda before Parliament right now that is still being debated upon. We need to get to a point where even when it comes to the taxing of youth-led businesses, we find strategic policies around that. A young person forms a company today, the following day they have to submit TOT. It becomes very, challenging. So there is a whole entire system. I can go on and on. This is like my favorite topic.
When it comes to business, actually I had encountered the same problem to register political space. So like, it doesn't sound like a business.
It doesn't sound like a business.
We have to find something else. No,
what's the tax bracket?
It doesn't sound like an organization. If it's like that, then you have to register with the society.
But you and I know the gentleman who runs the diary of a CEO in the UK. I've forgotten his name. It's a podcast. And it's a whole entire company. It's a whole entire company. And it's a podcast.
Well, we may go as short for today's conversation. We go back to Lusaka Central.
Yes.
There's a lot of issues. There's traffic lights. There's actually the actual traffic. There's garbage, so on and so forth. Lusaka Central is facing. And there's only one, the city council that's managing it. How are you going to face the city council? Or how are you going to work with them to see that these issues are actually managed or lessened?
I think
garbage collection.
I think that's some of the things that I've also established in my manifesto to say, look, and that's why these conversations are important as leaders to be having, because the Lusaka City Council can only work on key issues if the area member of parliament is consistently raising the problems of some of these key issues. And that's why I keep on emphasizing the importance of deliberating. So my core responsibility as a member of parliament is to ensure that the city council is meeting to some of the key demands that are going wrong in my constituency. However, I should not only leave it to the city council. One of the things that we have also proposed in there is for us to have what we are calling the Constituency Development Fund. Lusaka Central is endowed with companies. Lusaka Central is endowed with industries.
There's actually the Lusaka Solid Waste Management.
That's a different one. So there is a Lusaka Solid Waste Management, but the Constituency Development Fund will be a pool of resources which will, away from the CDF, we have the Constituency Development Pool Fund, where we're generating funds through corporate social responsibility, which helps us to address some of the major issues that we are currently facing within the community. When you go to a town center, what the biggest water and sanitation issue in town center, when you sit and you engage with some of our engineers, they will tell you, the biggest problem that is there is the drainages are blocked, so when it rains it floods and so on and so forth. So when you come into some of the areas like Bauleni, it's basically maybe more of a sanitation problem. And there is actually data that actually has shown that basically maybe even deal with the wash crisis within Lusaka, not only Lusaka Central, but a larger portion of Lusaka, we need not less than $5 billion. So you start small. What can we do? Bauleni maybe doesn't have a proper dump site. So people just dump as things come.
Yes.
Bauleni probably doesn't have a proper dump site. How can we preserve a particular land where we ensure that when all dirt is dumped, we take it to a particular territory? But then again, how can we turn, waste into economic, initiatives? Because waste in itself is not something that we should completely waste. It's something that can actually be refined into an economic opportunity. So there are all those nitty-gritties which I have explicitly established in my manifesto.
So as you're answering this, the problems is in Lusaka Central, there are a lot of constituencies, and the problems are interconnected.
They're interconnected.
The solid that gets from one place is going to be dumped to another constituency. The people that are moving from this side will be dumping solid from this side.
Look at Mandevo. Yes. Look at Louisia.
So how do you handle such issues now as a leader?
And I think that's why it's also important for members of parliament not to think that we exist in silos, because there's a need for me to say, okay, the member of parliament for Mandevo, because a certain segment of garden is maybe connected to Lusaka Central. So how can you and me then engage and see how best we can deal with some of these key challenges? So maybe a certain portion of your CDF and a certain portion of my CDF, we see how best we can deal with a certain challenge that is basically confronting our community. Because some of these issues are interconnected. There are people who come from Matero who come to work in my constituency. There are people who leave my constituency to go and work in Mandevo, to go and work in Chawama. So all these nitty-gritties are highly interconnected. And I think that's why it's also important to say, when it comes to development, we need to kill party lines. Because let us say the person who's MP for Chawama, we belong to different political parties. Then does that mean we shouldn't work? We can basically work together. If it's for the betterment of the people, definitely we can work together. But if we're looking at it from the betterment of our political party, then automatically we become blinded to the ideal reality of providing a good livelihood for our people.
Are you leaders, or these political leaders, doing enough in terms of behavioral change on waste management?
There's a lot of work we need to do, to be honest, And
what are you going to do different on
I think there's a lot of, because I might have all the best solutions, but if I also don't invest in behavioral change, then we're not doing anything about it. So I think there's a sensitization program we did last year, which we stopped, and I think it was wrong of us, which we started in Bauleni, where we're trying by all means to sensitize people on, keeping the environment clean, creating certain behavioral tendencies. So we're actually doing that in schools, because we understood to say children have a way on how they can also impact their homes when they go back home. There are things that when my son comes back home and he tells me what he learned at school, and he tells me, one time, I wanted to touch food before washing my hands, and he told me, Teacher told me,
yes,
before you touch your food, you need to eat. You need to wash your hands. Apologies. So something applies. That what we did was we went into key schools within Bauleni just to educate, the kids in some of those schools on the importance of keeping the environment clean. And what we also did was, tree planting activities and so on and so forth. So I think for me, what I would basically state, around that, there's a lot of sensitization maybe that we also have to. And I think you also challenged me because it's something that maybe I did not even reflect well in my manifesto on the importance of behavioral change. Yeah.
As a country as a whole, we're still struggling with behavioral change.
Yeah.
How long as a country are we going to struggle with people changing behavior, specifically in terms of waste management, throwing garbage, moving cars, just throw plastic like that? Where's the problem, really?
I think it's about just being deliberate. Do you remember when it was COVID-19, where all of us felt it's an abomination if I leave the house without wearing a mask? Why? Because that conversation was consistently talked about. So something applies when it comes to waste management. When we consistently just keep on talking about it, when you are watching your TV and there's an ad that comes, and it shows, a person throwing garbage, and you put certain laws in place. If you throw this, like Botswana, what Botswana did, Botswana put certain stringent laws in place. They didn't even just throw in a sweet wrapper, on the streets. That's an offense in itself. So they made sure that they create very clean environments that even just getting to a point where you spit in public feels like an abomination. But what we can also do is to incorporate that in media.
I think we should have a 50 seconds ad or 1 minute ad just to talk about waste management. What do you think?
It would be important. And also tapping into how people are easily consuming information. People are easily consuming information through social media. People are easily consuming information through influencers. People are easily consuming information through comedy. People are easily consuming information through music. So how can we also now begin to utilize some of the things that people are easily consuming information, and we tap all these things in when it comes to us changing this behavioral tendency around waste management, So we get some of our, influencers to become key ambassadors around this agenda. We get key bloggers, key, Facebook pages in our country to speak highly about some of these things. The more something is talked about, the easier it becomes easy for that to become easily embedded in our system. So I think for me, that would really, really help us a lot, where we go heavy on a sensitization campaign.
This is a political space, and today we're hosting Bwanga, Chriseddy, Mwila on the conversation today. Now, let's go to the issue of street vending.
Yeah.
What practical solutions do you think you will implement, or do you think are implementable in terms of balancing order and livelihood?
I think that's a very highly political question, to be honest, and
it brings fire every time
it brings fire. But I think it's also, I think what's important is that before we displace people, let us have an alternative trading location where we can actually take them. Because we owe it to our people, right, to create some of these trading places. Yeah. But it's also a behavioral issue that we also have to inculcate. So if I have to say we are removing these mobile money booths here, at least we need to also have an alternative trading place.
But where the alternative is, that's maybe not where most transactions are done.
Like I've said again, people have a way on how they move to a particular environment where it's basically happening, right? So when they know I can't get a service in this area because of A, B, C, D, definitely the consumers will move to that particular region. So many of us, we always thought to have a office space, I need to be in town center. For the longest, that's what people thought. Now people can have an office space in Chalala. People can have an office space in Kabolonga, and people will actually follow you. So something applies. When we provide alternative, trading places, it's very easy for people to move to where such trading places have been done, because they also understand, say, this has not been done out of malice. This has been done because we also want to create order in our communities?
Issues to do with junkies.
Yeah.
It starts from drugs, then it goes like that.
Yeah.
And some of the drugs maybe they might be taking, it's a cartel of some sort.
That's right.
So as an MP, you don't have the police power to deal with that.
Yeah.
How are you going to deal with that? Because you
easiest...
proposed of dealing with junkies, but how practically are we going to deal with it?
Some of the key areas we are proposing is some of the things that are really driving young people into drug addiction is a lack of activity. So most of them don't, they'll say we don't have much that we're doing in our community. So we give ourselves to drugs, So for me, one of the key areas that we are also proposing is to now introduce as many extracurricular activities within the communities, within school and outside of school. Back in those days, growing up in the Copper Belt, we could do a lot of sporting activities. We could have jets in those days, but jets is not even as pronounced as it used to be in those days. We could have debate competitions, but they're not as pronounced today as they were pronounced then. So even when you look at school calendars, it's not like the way it used to be before, where to say in term 1 we're going to have a sporting activity, in term 2 we're going to do this. So it would also now be important for us to say, okay, beyond the classroom, especially in public schools, because private schools, maybe they can have all these activities. Beyond the classroom, what else can our young people be exposed to within the school premises and outside the school premises? The other component we also have to begin to introduce is how do we create rehabilitation facilities within each ward of Lusaka Central that get some of these, young people who are addicted to drugs. We say maybe we're going to have a Louisia Rehabilitation Center. At that rehabilitation center, we help some of the young people in that community. So we have a Louisia Rehabilitation Center, Bwanga Rehabilitation Center, Luwa Rehabilitation Center, Independence Rehabilitation Center. So you have 4 rehab facilities within the community. So these young people, when they are placed in this rehabilitation center, when they are rehabilitated, beyond rehabilitation, there is also something that they don't go back into the community, but they go back to an activity. This activity can, you find a way on how you create partnership with key institutions. You create partnership with key government agencies, whether the security wing or whichever wing, to say we have these young people who've been rehabilitated and they're looking to start their lives all over again.
So root cause, they'll say they don't have much to do. So is it from maybe a home disciplinary point of view where these junkies are come from, where they don't have enough guidance from their parents, so they're easily carried away with certain drugs, or is it just lacking what to do? Why is it really the
I'm a parent, and sometimes also we have to be honest with ourselves that you can do everything that you can as a parent, but you also have to understand that the fair share of your child's time is with the community. Yeah. So my son will leave home at 7:45. And my son is at school up until 3 p.m. So my son is actually exposed more to the community. But when he comes back home at 3 p.m., yeah, we play around here and there. I can tell him all, but there's a time that he's also spending with the community. So while the parents can do their part as leaders and as a community, we can also do our part. Because as unlike the US or the European countries, a child is not only raised by the nuclear family. A child can also be raised by, the community, the social fabric where that child is coming from, the church. One of the things that I introduced at my local church is to discuss on some of those issues that you've talked about, drug addiction and so on and so forth, where I talked about the need of meeting the young people at their point of concern before the concern. So before a young person can become addicted, let us expose them to what they need to be exposed to before the addiction. So I think we all have a role to play, to be frank. And I think even as parents who are listening to us, they would really be happy when they know that they also have partners in the community who care for their children the same way they care for their children.
Don't you think, especially the Gen Z, these kids have a lot of freedom?
But it's understanding them. Okay. I work with Gen Z, and
where do you balance between discipline and freedom? Where is the balance between discipline and freedom?
I would have loved to comment on that.
No, please comment, and you will comment.
That's what I'm saying. I think it's being able to understand that generations are different. You know, I work with Gen Z, and I would have this Gen Z who comes up to me and tells me, Mwila, you're looking at this 19-year-old, you know, Mwila, the report is ready. It's on your table. And while you are at it, Natasha called. You're calling my wife, Natasha. Right? So, but then you get to understand the world in which they operate in. You get it, right? So in my company, I've created this environment where it's very lucrative for them to be innovative because I understand who they are. So we have like a whole entire gaming room. You know, when you come to my office, you have like a whole entire gaming room. And you create not a so serious environment, because that's how I understand. This is how Gen Z think. And when you look at the output, because my company is managing big brands in this country, but when you look at the output, because 80% of my workforce are Gen Z, because I give them this freedom not to be too serious, but they bring out what they need to bring out. So it's being able to understand that generations assimilate things differently. So even for us as parents or as community leaders, we need to also understand it from that particular perspective, that this new generation of young people, they assimilate things differently. And because they do that, we also have to find means and ways on how we attack them at their point of concern.
And Zambia, as general as a country, is a graveyard of a lot of failed empowerment programs.
Yeah. So
you talked about crowdfunding in your manifesto. Like, what concrete evidence do you think partnership really works? And so far, do you think there's already a company or something that has declared to say they're ready for such initiatives?
Yeah, I feel like partnerships really work, but I think where we miss it, especially as idealists and innovators, is that we don't meet partners at their point of need. So when I come to you, Webster, and I tell you that I am forming a school of politics, and in this school of politics, we have a component where we are going to be training young people on political journalism and just basically how to handle conversations around politics. So we would like the political space to fund this particular initiative. You would quickly jump to that opportunity. Why? It is speaking to what you're doing. The biggest problem we are having is that when we go to a partner, this partner is passionate about financial literacy. Yeah. And you go to them saying you want to partner with them on mental health. That's where we get to miss it. So there has been a mismatch when it comes to partner mapping, especially either when it comes to crowdfunding or so on and so forth. But even when it comes to youth empowerment, as it were, what we've also done is that we assume every young person wants to go into fishery, into fish farming. Apologies. We assume every young person wants to have a tank. What do you call if it tank? If you have Minister of Youth, if my tank, you know those fuel tankers. Fuel tankers. We assume every young person wants a fuel tanker. We assume every young person wants to go into agriculture, but we haven't done a strategic mapping of what young people really want. So the young people who are probably are just passionate about content creation, let us meet them at their point of need. The young people who are passionate about sport, we meet them at their point of need. The young people who are passionate about media, I was so happy when I saw a call from CEEC where there was a funding for people in media. You know, because now people are beginning to understand, to say this in itself has become a big economic empowerment and economic driver when it comes to even creation of jobs, you understand? So I think for me, that's where all these things, come to life. Being able to understand what the partner is bringing on the table, because you are getting money from the partner. So the partner won't give you money for charity. They'll give you money to also advance something that they are passionate about. So if in Lusaka Central, we make a challenge where we are saying we are bringing together young people to create a system on waste management. You know, what can we do? What can we do? How can we sort this issue out? And we're looking for a partner that can fund this particular initiative. So you begin to now look for a partner who is passionate about eradicating this particular problem. So I think for me, those are some of the nitty-gritty that we are even currently doing, mapping key players we can actually work with.
So you're definitely sure this empowerment program or this resource mobilization program, it won't be another...
I'm not sure it will work. Okay. It will work so well that every other constituency will want to do what we are doing.
And Lusaka Central sits on very big people.
That's what I was saying.
And as a fairly young man, the time if you become an MP, you have to face these people and negotiate with them, power ministers, permanent secretaries, so on and so forth. Do you have a person that day one you can call to get things done if you really need to maybe to do something?
Elaborate your question again.
I mean, like you are saying, to crowdfund, to put resources together. In one or the other, you have to talk to certain influential people that will help you get through it. Do you have someone that you can say, or people that you can actually talk to and help you navigate through?
One of the greatest gifts that God gave me, my brother, is an ability to speak.
You speak so well. Very sweet voice.
I always say that I can sell sand in the desert. So one thing is for sure, I don't need anyone. I just need me and my drive and my potential to actually get to someone's heart, and they'll definitely give us what we need. I'll tell you this. I've been engaging partners for the last 10 years. So I know how to engage and speak to partners in such a way that they see the need to support such a particular agenda. So, and normally how this works out is definitely networking plays a big role. But what also plays a big role is the idea behind what you're actually bringing to the table. Be Relevant has gotten to where it is today because of partners. And so for me, that's basically the same skill that I am bringing to the table if I became Member of Parliament for Lusaka Central. Is I have a strong skill for lobbying. I have a strong skill for negotiation. And I have a strong skill when it comes to bargaining. So definitely, with those skills together, representing my people in Parliament, when I come out of Parliament, it will be very easy for me to lobby for what needs to be done in Lusaka Central. It will be very easy for me to bring my A game when it comes to negotiation on the things that are needed for Lusaka Central.
So as Lusaka Central, the incumbent MP, Honorable Haimbe, him is in the senior cabinet. Do you think that has played well in terms of him being in senior cabinet and also benefiting the constituency?
I can't answer for him though.
No, you look at it from as in Lusaka Central. Do you think him being there has really benefited the people of Lusaka Central?
There are ministers who are still present with the people in their constituencies. That's what I can say. How
do you rate his performance on a scale of 1 to 10? The incumbent MP. You are rating
the incumbent Member of Parliament.
Yes, you are rating his performance as an MP, not as an individual.
Yeah, his performance as MP, if I was being honest, I would give him a 3.5 out of 10.
Okay. Look straight at that camera and say it.
Yeah, 3.5 out of 10. I feel the incumbent would definitely he would have done more for the constituency. Honestly speaking.
Such as?
He would have done more for the constituency.
Where he hasn't performed well. Are you able to point out those?
Yeah, youth empowerment, programs, proper access to financing, and many other key areas. I believe he would have definitely done, even just being present with the community. Sometimes there are certain members of Parliament today who have held on to some of their seats for over 10, 20 years. Not because they're doing anything special within their community, but they're just present with the people. So I think for me, that would be my ideal reality.
And I'll ask this question. Is there any policy that has been implemented by government that you feel has failed the people of Lusaka Central specifically?
It would be pretty difficult for me to really outline a major problem. Maybe I can't say it failed, but it can be done better, and there are many policies the government has brought to the table, right? Free education. I'm a big advocate of free education. I support free education 100%. But one of the things I've also stated is the need for us to ensure that we have quality education, where the gap between the teacher-pupil ratio, we basically work on that, So, and I think slowly but sure, we are getting to some of those, key issues, So for me, I can't really say there's a major policy that has, indirect correlation to Lusaka Central, because I think every policy has a way on how it affects the constituency in a different way. Recently, the president was launching the feeding program in Lusaka Central, which was a big thing. I'm a big supporter of the feeding program as well. So yeah, I think for me that would be my.
So as we are winding up the conversation, who is supporting your campaign? Who is sponsoring your campaign? You are done the 1 million. I don't know if it's a 1 million funding, so on and so forth. But really, let's look at the wheels. Who is driving the campaign?
Myself.
Nah, I won't buy that.
Myself.
Is it that because in Zambia you don't have to mention the funder of your campaign, so it's restricted to that?
Myself.
Okay. Really, if you don't win the Lusaka Central seat, what one problem that you say you tried to fix, whether in office or not?
Youth empowerment has always been my biggest component. So I win the seat. I really want to see how best that can be like the anchor of everything that I'm going to be doing. I don't win the seat. I still go back to reality, and I still go back to some of the big works I've been doing. Because for me, I've always considered myself that I have proved that leadership is beyond the ballot. I have shown leadership even before the ballot. So for me, I think that would be my take.
Look straight in that camera, and your last message to the people that will see this. Your aspiring candidate, please, you can.
I think my last message to the people that are listening to me right now is that the problems of our community, colleagues, they're inevitable. But as a people, we have to be the inevitable solution to some of the biggest problems in our community. And as an aspiring member of parliament for Lusaka Central, I am presenting myself to be among those people that can provide the solutions that we are going through, the problems we're going through in Lusaka Central. And I think my last take is that to the young people that are watching me right now, you can also do it. You don't have to wait for a particular period of a particular moment in time. You just have to put yourself out there, because above and beyond, the future of this beautiful nation is highly dependent on our generation. That's what I would like to say.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mwila, for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Webster.
Looking forward to hosting you some more.
Oh, definitely. I'll be here again.
So this is the end of episode 9 of the Political Space with me, Webster. So today we're hosting Bwanga Mwila Chriseddy, a governance expert and someone that is aspiring for Lusaka Central. Until next time, it's bye-bye for now.